Hi, I'm Sean Stone. You know, conspiracy theorists often refer to Hollywood cinema as a form of mind control, saying that the Illuminati or the power structure, whether it be Masons or some kind of secret society, uses film to send messages to the mass audience. And oftentimes they'll use symbols within those films like the pyramid or the all-seeing eye, phrase words, catchwords, you name it, to either mind control us or send us messages. And it seems that if we look back, one of the first films that really caught the attention of the mass audience and showed a very spiritual journey of awakening was The Matrix in 1999, a film that has a lot of predictors in it if you study it. Actually, Neo's passport, for example, expires on September 11th, 2001, and this film was made 2 years before 9/11. A film that is full of ancient philosophy, including Platonic ideas, at the same time New Age messages. But one of the most important concepts in that film, as you recall, is that humans are feeding a machine. We are feeding some kind of alien life force that has turned us into slaves, into batteries for their survival. And that everything we are then living in this reality is an illusion. What strikes me as very interesting about that is when you study many of these older esoteric traditions of the West or the East, you'll find there is truth to that. In the words of our guest today, this is the trap system, a spiritual technological construct keeping humans trapped on Earth through, among other things, reincarnation and karma, making them forget themselves from lifetime to stop them from progressing and finding the truth. Are we here serving a machine, are we in a sense living on some kind of slave planet? Is this a prison for our souls? That's what we're going to be addressing with our guest today. He's a high-level Freemason. He comes from a lineage, actually, of Freemasons on his father's side, and other esoteric orders. For example, he's a Rosicrucian and Martinist. And we'll get into all of these issues with him today. His name is Edward Alexander. And he's written a very interesting book, which I recommend everyone to read. It's called Earth, A Spiritual Trap. So stick around. We'll get into it. This is Buzzsaw. Edward, thanks for joining us today. I want to start out, because of your ancestry and your knowledge of Freemasonry, for example, with a very basic question that I think is often asked within conspiracy circles, and that is, do the Masons rule the world?
Do the Masons rule the world? Well, the thing when it comes to these secret orders is that we have a situation where the Masonic order itself is split up in different factions now. You have what you can call the good guys and the bad guys. And to say that the Masons are behind everything is a bit too far out, because it's not really like that. You have a group in power that actually more or less pretends to be Masons. They give Masonry a bad name because they are part of a corrupt group that are using the Masonic principles and knowledge to get control and power over the people and the population. But for people like me that are part of the more true Masonic groups, we consider these guys corrupt and outsiders.
Certainly, I understand your point. I mean, I'm also a Mason, and to me, my understanding of Masonry is that there is a spiritual principle to it, that it seems, I could see how when you're initiated in Masonry, without giving away too much of the detail of it, but as you're initiated into it, it feels that there are things that were happening inside of the lodge during my initiation, and there were things that were happening outside of the lodge, which were of a much bigger spiritual impetus. And it felt as though I was having experiences with unseen entities that were starting to interact with me once I was initiated. And I felt as though they were challenging me and testing me to find out, what kind of character is this man? Is he a good man or a bad person? If he's corruptible, then they would find that quality in my character and try to corrupt me. But if I'm not, then I would take a different path. So it seems to me that perhaps Masonry is just the doorway by which people of a certain spiritual inclination or knowledge would start to initiate themselves, and in that process find out whether they're going to end up serving the dark side, Satan, for example, or serving the higher soul, God, the connected consciousness. Does that resonate to you?
Yeah, that's true. You have, of course, spiritual entities behind the order, so to speak. That's true from almost any secret order or esoteric order that you find, because most of them have been put in place by other entities here on Earth, and many of them are also still ruled by these entities. It's not even secret all of the time. You have groups like, for example, the Theosophical Society, which is very deeply involved with these ascended masters and all of these entities. That's no secret. The same thing goes, for example, for the Rosicrucian order, that is also have important ascended masters as part of the higher masters of the order itself. And of course, the different Masonic groups and orders that you have are also involved with other entities and spiritual beings.
Into that,
and
because
the problem with many people that are taking part of these orders, that they are not aware of this, and they may take part in a corrupt order and start to be involved with more negative and destructive entities without being aware of it, of course. So they start to be influenced by these beings subconsciously.
Is about this where, for example,
That's something you have to be aware of when you take part of a secret order.
Right. Well, I mean, I've heard stories, for example, of a man I know who was a 32nd degree Mason, and within his lodge, which, you know, Masons obviously have various lodges, as you know, but for the audience to understand that when you're initiated, you initiate within a lodge, and then you have a passport to travel to other lodges worldwide. So within this guy I know, his lodge, he was a 32nd degree Mason. He found out that there were people doing black magic, OTO, Aleister Crowley type of rituals after hours within the lodge. And when he found this out, it very much shocked him, because that was not the truth. This is why people, I think, get a bad label for all Masons, when in fact people like this had no connection to what these other guys were doing secretly, without others' knowledge.
That's true. What you are talking about now is often taking place in shared lodges, where you have one lodge, or which is essentially a building that is shared by different orders. For example, you have maybe the Masonic order using it some days of the week, and a different order using it other days of the week. Could be, for example, Otto that you were talking about now, Ordo Templi Orientis, which is a black magic order.
So let's get
founded by Aleister Crowley, who was.
Well,
yes.
Let's get into this question of, as you talked about, the entities, because across the world now, we have more and more people waking up to the idea of aliens, that there is alien life on this planet. If you talk to Muslims, as I've been investigating the last couple of years, the Islamic tradition talks about jinns. It's part of the Quran. It's part of the scripture, the same way the Bible talks about fallen angels, Nephilim, fallen beings. So in Islamic tradition, the jinns would very much be like what we call reptilians. They oftentimes take reptilian form. They can possess people. They exist in a dimension beyond our own, and yet through their influence over humans, they are essentially waging a war to control and enslave humans. What is the history, what is the lineage of these entities that you say rule the secret orders?
Well, this goes very far back in time. When it comes to what you call reptilians, that are now very famous in the whole New Age and conspiracy movement, they are basically spiritual entities that are, when seen with astral sight or a psychic sight, they often have a kind of reptilian form. But these are not physical beings. There's a misconception about these beings. People often believe that there are shapeshifters in this world who are actually physical shapeshifters, but that's not the case. What is really taking place is that some people have a developed third eye or psychic sight, and they're able to perceive these entities for what they really are. So they may be looking at what is apparently a normal guy in the street, and they see what they believe to be a shape-shifting process. What really takes place is that they see with a psychic sight, the third eye, the true nature of that person. And you can say that these beings, they have a different soul than the general human population. Well, they are also a very ancient race.
But would you say that all of these all these aliens are essentially the same race of shapeshifters taking different forms, or are we talking about different families, different races of alien beings?
Yeah, you have many different entities from different places in the universe. When it comes to the more sinister ones, like these called reptilians, they have been around for a long time. They have been around for hundreds and thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years. And they go back to our own origins in the universe because the human race didn't originate on Earth. When it comes to the physical universe, we came from other systems long time before this solar system. And these other entities have been following around and kind of deceived us on the way and put themselves into different higher positions of society at all times in the different planets and worlds that we have been living in, and they have been with us for a very, very long time. They are part of the whole trap system itself, and are more higherly, more deeper connected with the real creators of the world, the physical world. And what is really the case with the whole physical world and what I'm calling the trap system is that these entities have created this physical universe to entrap us and lure us and deceive us, to make us their slaves, use us for consumption because we produce very large amounts of energy, spiritual energy, etheric energy, that these entities feed upon. And that's why you often hear about ritual abuse and things like people that are being sacrificed and different types of abuse that is taking part in different black magic rituals. This is because they are feeding on the negative kind of energy, that emotional energy. This is very important to them. And that's why you have a lot of negative events taking place in the world all the time. Wars, terrorism, disasters, all of this that you are fed with in the news all the time is to create a negative psychological state in the different people of the world that they in turn feed from this energy.
So what you're talking about makes sense as far as the energy feeding that takes place, that there is essentially, you're saying, beings that feed upon our emotional states, that this aura, this etheric energy that we resonate. And that's why, for the most part,
this part is actually very similar to what you referred to earlier about the Matrix and how it's portrayed in the Matrix movie. The thing about the Matrix movie is that it only portrays two levels of reality. It portrays this normal physical world, and it portrays the other world, the real world, as they would call it in the Matrix movie then. But the problem with this portrait is that in reality we have many levels of existence. We are not only in two different worlds, the illusion and the real world. We're in a multitude of realities. We have a multidimensional body. For example, when you go to bed at night and you dream and you have a dream, in reality you are visiting another world in your dream world. This is a real experience. It's not just a imagination or the mind playing tricks. It's a real experience that is taking place in a different level of reality, in a different dimension, so to speak. And we are interconnected with a lot of different dimensions. We have a lot of bodies, both physical and non-physical, spiritual and so on. I've been writing a bit about this in my book, Earth, a Spiritual Trap, where I explain the whole different levels of the soul, the higher soul as I call it, which is the more true essence of ourself, the highest form of self. And we have what I call soul fragments. And the soul fragments are like our different individual bodies in lower levels of existence, like here now, me and you speaking to each other. We have two different experiences of our soul fragment. You have your soul fragment, I have mine, that is connected to both our individual higher soul. And at the same time, we have other soul fragments in other different bodies around in different dimensions, alternate worlds, parallel worlds, and so on. And all of them are connected to the same higher souls, individual higher souls. You have your higher soul, I have my higher soul. But we have many soul fragments below. It's in a sense as comparing it to a tree with its branches and leaves. You have one tree with many individual leaves, and each leaf could be experiencing themselves as individuals, but they are still same of the whole tree, the same tree, the higher soul in a sense, where each leaf will be a representation of the different soul fragments, individual bodies.
Certainly, and it makes you wonder if we're not just part of this giant body that is God in a sense, because if God is a larger body of consciousness that contains all of us, and we're just individual cells within within this who are fundamentally tied to the same source.
That's true. If you teachings, you have teaching that God is the mind of all, or everything exists within the mind of God. So because of that, it's impossible to ever encounter God or speak directly with God, because we are all just creation inside the imagination of God, and we can't communicate directly with that which we are existing within the imagination itself, so to speak. And this is reflected in ourselves too, because we have our own imagination. We have our own inner worlds. We can create our own inner worlds that we can interact with and kind of manifest into our reality around us in our physical world right now. That's how the law of attraction and all of this works, is because of our own power of imagination and how to make that manifest into the real world around us as we live in our everyday life.
To me, that's why I believe, to me, fundamentally, the difference between black magic and white magic is this. Black magic says, my will be done. Let my will, whatever you do, whatever you will, that's, that's fine, basically. Whatever you choose to do, with the Crowley expression, whatever thou wilt shall be the law, right? Whatever you will to do is fine. Whereas the white magic says God's will. I would let my will be superseded by God's will. God's will is more important than my will. To me, those are the two fundamental schools of thought regarding willpower, the force, magic. Is that really what you think boils down to when it comes to these entities, those that serve God, that serve the higher source, and those that really just serve themselves? And they said they create the structure of feeding that we were talking about, this satanic hierarchy?
Yeah, well, the thing is that these beings themselves are being deceived just like anybody else. They have been indoctrinated and mind controlled into having their specific belief system, because you have many levels of the whole power structure. You have what you can call the slaves of the evil powers too. They are just slaves just like anybody else in the world. The difference is that they think they have more power than us. They think they have some reward from doing what they are doing, but in reality they are being manipulated just like us, but for a different purpose. You have some that are manipulated to be the slaves and some that are manipulated to be the ones in so-called power, but in reality they are not in power above anybody else, because they are just slaves within the same system themselves. They are just being deceived and manipulated themselves just like anybody else. So it's an illusion upon illusion in a sense. And you have many conspiracies upon the conspiracies within the world itself too. And you have like the different groups, the different movements, such as the whole conspiracy movement that we are part of here in this show, the New Age movement and so on, which have been created to further deceive people and manipulate people, to give them an illusion of free choice, free will, to give them the illusion of being able to work against the so-called evil forces. But in reality, they are still being deceived within their new age group or conspiracy group, whatever they label themselves, because they are still not understanding the truth of what is really going on. They are still blinded, and they are still living exactly the way that the people in real power want them to live, which is in deceit and being deceived.
You're saying the only way out of the trap is to essentially to prepare for the next incarnation. You don't think there is any freedom that can be achieved in this incarnation on Earth, in this life cycle?
What you have to do is to follow the way of the ancient Egyptians, the ancient Tibetans and so on. They really understood more of what's going on. They understood that we are being deceived. They understood that we are not supposed to be here in this physical incarnation as we are living life now. They understood that we have to ascend, or we have to go beyond the physical. So they practice different methods on how to maintain their consciousness, their awareness beyond death, to learn how to navigate the afterlife before dying. For example, the pyramids of Egypt, they were built as temples for initiations and spiritual practices that involves how to astral project, how to go into the afterlife, how to be able to understand what will happen to you after you die, and how to be able to maintain your consciousness after death so that you can move on instead of coming back into a new incarnation. Because there is no point in going back into a new physical incarnation in Earth. Then you will just live out the same trap all over again. You will start from the beginning, so to speak, because you will have your memories erased. This is also part of the whole trap system, the amnesia that is forced upon us from incarnation to incarnation. That's why I'm telling people that Earth is not some kind of spiritual school, because in the New Age movement, it's very popular to say that we are living in a kind of spiritual school, that we are here to learn and to evolve and develop ourselves spiritually. But if that was the case, why don't we remember the past life? Why don't we remember the mistakes we have done in the past? Why don't we remember the good things we did? Why don't we remember anything that could have helped us to actually evolve? The whole reason for that is because we are not supposed to remember, because we are supposed to stay on the same level of ignorance as we have been on for thousands and thousands of years. We are not supposed to be free. We're not supposed to evolve. We are supposed to be exactly where we are. So because of that, they have put in place this amnesia, mind control, and brainwashing systems, both in the physical world around us by technology in society and so on, but also in the spiritual realms, in our afterlife, what comes between the incarnations and so on.
You speak of the pyramids, and as we know, the orientation of the pyramids seems to have been towards Orion for certain regions, Orion and Sirius in particular, as having very great importance.
The ancient Egyptians were in touch with different entities from these regions of space. There are many different higher, what should I call it, more developed entities out there in the universe, spiritually developed, that understand more of the full picture like we are talking about now. And they are trying to assist mankind in many ways. Many of these secret orders and societies are in contact with the same entities and different entities of different regions of the universe, not only the physical universe, but also the spiritual or astral planes. And these entities are twofold. You have the ones that are so-called good guys and the ones that are the bad guys. You have the ones that want to help us and assist us and give us the truth, and you have the ones that are there to manipulate and deceive us and control us. And there is a war going on in the spiritual realms, just as it is here in the physical world. You have a war between the good and the evil. And these ancient civilizations, they were in deeper touch with these entities than we are now in our modern society. And it was more common for people of those times to understand these spiritual things. But it got suppressed by time because of these negative entities that want to control us and manipulate us. So the real knowledge has been taken away from us, and we have been introduced to new false knowledge, false practices like religions, different spiritual systems that are not helpful in any way, just keeping us in the same ignorant level as always. And they're working very hard to maintain this ignorance that we are living in this world.
What if we go back then to these planets? From your knowledge, where do humans come from? Which star system? And what is the history? How did we end up as enslaved in this trap?
Well, this goes back into a very ancient past of human origins. From the time when we came to the physical world, where we were lured and tricked down into the dense matter of the physical world, and we were essentially just deceived, just like we are being deceived all the time here. They lured us into the physical bodies where we were split, because like I mentioned earlier, we have a higher soul, which is the highest form of self. This higher soul is your true individual self, the highest form it is possible to experience of individual self. But we were split down into different levels of soul fragments, that I call it. And a soul fragment is a part of the higher soul. It's just a small conscious part that is not fully aware or fully awake in any way. It's just a little spark of the full totality that is trapped within a physical body. It is impossible for a human to experience himself in the fullest form as long as he is living in the physical body, because there are certain limitations in the body that have been created on purpose. There are limitations in the mind, in the physical brain, that makes it impossible for a person to really express himself and understand himself the way he really is, as long as he is trapped within the physical body. And this have been put in place to keep us ignorant and to keep us blinded and enslaved. We have been given a very limited lifespan on Earth because of the same reasons, to keep us blinded, to keep us on the ignorant level, because you don't have time to develop yourself properly in the short lifespan we have. We live maybe up to 100 years old. And that's a very short lifespan compared to the thousands and thousands of years old we really are in the whole perspective of things in the greater scheme of the universe.
But in terms of the actual like origin, what was this initial conflict with reptilians? I mean, are the reptilians the ones who set this trap, or is it I've heard stories about the fish gods, or they're called nomos in West Africa. The Dogons refer to them as nomos. They're referred to as jinns. They also have said to have tremendous power. So there's fish gods, there's reptilians. I mean, history is very interesting. Who set this trap for humans?
Yeah, well, these different ancient entities that you are mentioning now, most of these are probably the same type of being, just perceived in different ways over the different cultures and so on. But yeah, this also goes way back long time before the physical world even existed, and to times where we were more free, living our lives as the higher souls that we really are. And these entities, they come up with understand, because these are very deceitful entities. They are very what we would call evil in our perspective. They are evil beings. And they wanted to manipulate and control others to feel more powerful themselves. They wanted to become gods and have their own worlds. They managed to understand how to create a physical world, and they managed to create different animals, life forms, and so on. But to be able to do that, they needed a kind of soul fragment from other forms of life, which means our own true self, this higher soul. They needed to capture the essence of our higher soul and put this essence into the physical body to be able to control the physical body, because the physical body cannot be alive without a spark of the soul within it, the life force, so to speak. So they captured our life force within the physical body so that they could manipulate the physical world through us by manipulating us. So when we are doing things in the physical world, most of the things are kind of controlled from a higher level by these entities, because they constantly influence our minds and our behavior and so on in different ways. Most of the time we are not aware of this. We have no idea what's really going on. And a lot of the physical attributes like psychology or psychological makeup has been created and designed in a way that makes us easy to control. For example, you have things like hypnosis. The only reason it is possible to hypnotize somebody is because we have been created that way. We are supposed to be easily manipulated. We are supposed to be easy to control and have power over. So that's why you have hypnosis being discovered in our world, is because people in this world here, they discovered this ability, whatever you want to call it, in the human mind that was, and they don't know that it was really by design. They just believe it is a psychological thing that goes on in the human population, but in reality it was programmed this way. It was created that way to make us easy to manipulate. We are born like that. We are born easy to manipulate.
Sure. And as we know, I mean, the basic states of hypnosis are not, we go into those basic states of hypnosis and trance after a few minutes of television watching, for example. It doesn't require the actual full-scale subliminal messaging of hypnotists to tell you to kill someone, to realize that we are being hypnotized constantly throughout the course of a day, and 90% of human population can be hypnotized. So that's reflective.
People need to be more aware of what's going on, how they are influenced, because as I wrote in my book, I wrote a chapter called External Influences, and in External Influences I'm explaining the different ways that we are influenced by other external entities or powers. It can be, like we're talking about now, hypnosis and subliminal messages and suggestions and so on. But you also have different forms of technology that puts us into a more suggestive state, you can call it, by different frequencies and so on. For example, you have, like you just mentioned now, television. And television can be used to alter the state of mind of people by affecting the brain waves. We have a brainwave frequency that is altered by both sound and images. So when you are sitting down watching a television, you never know if there is an embedded coding within that program, within what you're watching on the television, that can dumb you down, so to speak, and make you more open for suggestions and hypnotic commands and so on. This is very common. The entertainment industry is using this technology all the time, and of course marketing and advertising companies and so on is using this same technology to make it more easy to sell a product, for example. But it's used in many levels, more sinister levels too, to control people in more political ways, make them follow a specific agenda and so on. So it's a lot of power that they can put upon a person by using such subliminal methods to influence a person. You have other ways too, like the sound-based technologies. You have the radio wave technologies, like we always have different radio waves and signals in there that we can't even see or sense in any way, but this affects us nevertheless. You have electricity that is also in a specific frequency. Usually it's about 40 or 50 hertz, the frequency of the electric network. I don't really know what you call it in the United States, the grid, the power grid, I guess. And this is in a specific frequency range that affect our minds. This is the case for all electric equipment all over the world. No matter what you are, it's the same frequency that is being used. And you also have, of course, non-physical methods like spiritual methods, where they are using different spiritual technologies to affect your mind, such as psychic attacks and so on. So there is a really large amount of ways they are using to mind control and manipulate people and influence them in different ways. It's not just one way. They have so many ways. They are taking advantage of every new way they can discover, whether it's a technological way, whether it's psychological, whether it's spiritual, and so on.
Here you are. First of all, tell me a little bit, what is your background in terms of how did you learn this information? Because I know that your father's side is full of Masons of high levels, and you yourself are what level? What are you, 32nd degree or Mason?
No, I'm actually a 95th degree Mason. This relates to the different rites that you have in Masonry. I'm of a rite called Memphis Mithran rite, and also of the Mithran rite itself, the pure Mithran rite.
Talk a little bit about how you came to these conclusions, because it would seem that to be at that, as you talked about, a lot of these lodges and the higher levels are under the influence of these entities. So how did you come to this realization without at the same time falling into the same control that you speak of?
Yeah, that goes back to my own involvement with these orders from my family side. And we have been part of what I can only call more honest and not so corrupt orders as the mainstream ones, that we are learning more about the different forms of mind control that are put upon us in society in general, in the other orders and the spiritual influences that are put upon us, such as the ones I have been explaining right now. And we're very aware of all these different powers that are around us all the time in this order. That's something we learn about. But I'm also been working with different forms of, I've been involved with different governmental projects and so on, with the contacts I have there from my past about, I can't really go into so much details about them because these people are not out yet. They are not whistleblowers or anything. They are still active in their duties in the governments.
And so in terms of when you came to confront these, I mean, did you ever come under attack? Was it with various sorcerers or entities that were attacking you, or how did you encounter this reality?
There's been many problems in my life because of me speaking out, basically. As long as you keep shut and keep your mouth shut, you don't get so much problems. But when you start to speak out to the public about it, that's when you get into the trouble. If you start to share too much information that can actually be useful or too close to the truth. I've been having a lot of problems in my own life since I started speaking out it's about a decade ago now, around 10 years ago, when I first started to go public about my knowledge and experiences and teach other people about what they can do and what's really going on around them. I was set up by governments. I'm living in exile now, as you know, here in Argentina, and I have been living here for almost 8 years now because I was forced out of my own country because of false allegations against me, because of being set up and deceived, and being basically threatened with jail and being put away and shut down in different ways. So in the end, I decided to just get out of the country while I still could before they were able to shut me off completely. I had Masonic groups on my neck because of the material I'm sharing with you, and I've been having many different groups against me all the time. The good thing is I have also people on my side. We're a lot of people now working behind the scenes with the things we're talking about here and trying to get more truth out to the people. So there are good people in the power structure now. We have some good powers around, or else people like me would not be able to speak out as much as we do. We would be shut down more permanently, so to speak.
It seems like overall you're pretty pessimistic. It doesn't seem like you have much hope for planet Earth as far as humans waking up to this power structure and rejecting it. I mean, if you look to a lot of the holy scriptures, the idea of the second coming of Christ, or in the Quran, the idea of that really God creates man, and man is the master of this world, and not these entities, not these aliens. And the more we wake up to it, the more we can take control.
To learn their own place in the universe. They have to understand what they really are, where they come from, and what they can actually do. They have to understand that they are very powerful. We are very powerful beings. We are, in a sense, gods ourselves. We are able to create and design things and realities of our own. And we can make this manifest into this physical world around us, because that's one of the ways they are manipulating us, by abusing our creative power, so to speak, the powers we have to create. That's what they are manipulating us, but by influencing our way to think or our way to behave and so on, so that we in turn create a negative world around us, a negative experience around us by our own creative energies that we have within already. The thing is, we need to discover that and understand how our mind works, and understand how our mind affects the world around us, and also on the whole, where we come from and where we are going, and how we can maintain our wakefulness, awareness, and consciousness, not only through our life, but also beyond life and into death, and to other higher levels of existence. And that's the only way we can actually be free, is by maintaining consciousness and awareness beyond death.
Well, I think that's an excellent place to end it, wrap it up, and I think you're right. The expanding awareness and the realization that we are creators, that we have this tremendous power, and that's why, going back to my introduction, the influence that Hollywood has, and entertainment has, in sending out messages and signaling to people what their limitations are, and the idea that we now live in a society where only superheroes can save us, that's all nonsense. We have to re-empower each other, and mainly through ourselves, to empower ourselves to realize that we are creators of this reality. We are co-creating the reality that we're experiencing, exactly, as you would say.
And that's my mission, is basically to inform people about it and teach them different practices they can perform themselves that can expand their minds and make them see reality for what it really is, and understand their own true being.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Edward. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. And be well. Good luck to you in your journey. And please, I hope you can continue to spread the word and expand it, so more people can hear you and have an alternative point of view to the other New Age systems that are out there, telling people what's going on. I don't think any one person can say exactly what it is, but we need more voices like yours who have some inside knowledge and experience within these orders. Thank you. So,
thank you very much. Take care.
So there you guys have it. If you want to find out more, I definitely urge you to read the book, Earth, A Spiritual Trap, and go to his website. It's maggador.com, www.maggador.com, and download the book, read it. It's a very interesting read. All right, this is Sean Stone signing off. Thanks for coming.